got to hand Pete Carroll credit. Got to give him credit because he went into that game thinking, I have to get the lead because if I play from behind, I'm done. Because I'm not going to be able to come from behind with Charlie Whitehurst. And they threw everything they had into that first drive. They ran one of my favorite plays, the play that we love, where the quarterback rolls to the right, waits a second, then flings it back over to the left to the wide receiver. They ran that one. They ran a couple different ones.
Yep.
Like not quite trick plays, but it was like you could tell these were their best 5 plays. They got the lead. And that was it. But against the Saints, it's not going to work.
Well, it's going to be nice when they win the Super Bowl, bringing their record to 11-10 overall. That'll be fun. Something like that.
I just think that game last night was an argument for how the 18-game season can't happen.
Oh, boy. All I've heard is arguments the last couple of weeks. We got 6 rookie quarterbacks starting and bad weather and Seahawks-Rams to end the season on NBC.
I would argue we should go the other way and go to 15 or 14. Because this
14 games, yeah.
Well, it's just, I mean, this was ridiculous yesterday. The games were terrible. And the thought of playing 2 more weeks like that, I don't know. Anyway.
Well, they should really, maybe the players should propose like a 12-week schedule, and then they'll settle back on 16 again.
It's ridiculous. And then they claim to care about the players' health and all that stuff. It's like, you obviously don't, because we can't even get through 16 games. So Seahawks money line. Jets money line, plus 450 for the Seahawks, plus like I think 140 or something for the Jets.
How much did they win?
Whatever 9-1 odds were.
Well, what did they put down?
That I don't know. That's like asking about penis size.
See, in New York, we ask about that all the time.
How can you talk about your book with that voice?
Yeah.
You're like, hey, I was kind of trying to reread some Willa Cathers and was trying to kind of recapture that sort of feeling, that kind of felt life obliquely viewed. Hey, are we giving away panties? So they said, hey, so Dollhouse. I go, yeah. And they said, how about that? Too bad you didn't get to make out with Eliza Dushku. And I said, yeah, she's really pretty. We actually did a scene where we made out, and they cut it out of the episode. They go, well, if you'd been a black guy, you would have been fine because she loves black guys.
Oh no!
And I said, what? And I didn't. And then they said, well, she's dating Rick Fox. And I said, yeah, he's a black guy. I don't think that means. Yeah. And then they both got really quiet and immediately angry.
Oh, because you didn't go with it.
I'm not going to go with the racist morning fun.
Yeah.
And then they said, the tone of their voices immediately went, yeah, so you're excited about the rest of this book tour? And then the second guy said, yeah, about as excited as you are to do our show, right? Oh, and I go, what? What? And then Zombie Spaceship Wasteland in bookstores now, and they hung up on me. They were so angry that I wouldn't go along with her. And again, me disagreeing with them and then us going back and forth would have been good radio.
Right.
But it's all this false fun time. We're having a party at 6:17 a.m. on a Tuesday morning. Sad, horrible. Just like guys that are defensive about how not funny they are.
Yeah.
Because that's why they're on these horrible radio shows.
That's why there's a lot of transition.
There's so much transition, and eventually they get replaced by something that's nationally syndicated that actually works.
One of the reasons I always thought a podcast would work, and one of the reasons I want to do it was almost like counter to what people did on radio. I never understood why people on radio shows didn't talk like I talk to my friends. Like why can't I talk in a normal voice?
Yeah, you're sitting right now. You're leaning back.
I'm not wearing pants. Sorry about that, by the way.
Not wearing pants. You're in the happy baby pose.
Yeah.
Which is a little uncomfortable. And you're not constantly, whenever I do these, when I would go in live, these guys are literally leaning towards you, looking for the next joke or sound effect or, how can they keep this? There's not or they'll play that horrible bed music onto you.
Well, I always have, and I'm sure this happens to other people, but when people do my podcast, they're always excited after. They're like, that was great. I really enjoyed that.
Yes. Well, because
they're
relief.
So used to doing these weird, hey, and as you said before we came on, you're not one of those microwave comedians where it's like, come on and be funny for 3:30.
yeah, exactly. And I especially can't start shouting and artificially amping my voice up to match theirs. And there's that unspoken, why aren't you joining the party? It's like you've walked into a room full of meth heads who are they don't realize that everything they say is they're just kind of screaming it.
Yeah.
And when you walk in and go, hey, guys, what's going on? They're like, what the heck's wrong with you? Why are you talking that way? Are you on downers? And you're like, no, I'm actually talking the way that people talk at this time of the morning.
In real life.
And something's really wrong with you. You're either on white drugs or you're high on your own despair. You're starting to see the brick wall at the end of the alley that your career is going down, and you think maybe I can burst through it just with my own sonic waves. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, that's how a lot of these...
You know, part of the problem is...
What?
The budgets on those morning shows are so cheap, not for the talent, but for everything around.
You're right.
They'll have a coffee machine from 1973. And the coffee, I think, is so bad that they have to naturally build up.
And, I heard 3 times last night, and then I shut the TV. I had enough. I heard 3 say what you will about Ben Roethlisberger as a human being last night.
Yeah, I know.
Followed by he played a spectacular game. I think we get it already. We could say what we will about Ben Roethlisberger.
You wrote the column that I've always wanted to write, but have always been afraid to because people think I'm a Kobe hater. And you just filleted that crunch time myth that he's the guy that you want with the final shot in a big game, and you say no. Explain yourself.
I mean, first, I get why people say that because we've seen him make so many tough shots so many times, and that just gets emblazoned in your brain, right? But the fact is, stat geeks have been trotting out numbers for years now showing that he takes more shots than anybody and misses a lot of them. Now, that convinces some people, but not very many. So I looked a little harder and found my favorite little thing here is, over his 15-year career, the Lakers have the best offense in the NBA. They score 109 points per 100 possessions, which is amazing.
Yeah.
In crunch time, they score 82 points per 100 possessions, which is, not just a measure of crunch time. Every team gets worse in crunch time, but they come back from first, best offense in the NBA to 11th best offense. Now, what happens for the Lakers in crunch time is they stop using the amazing triangle that gets them the best offense in the NBA, and they start using Kobe time, where there's this other game which involves, broken plays and isolations and Kobe going against double teams and taking very, very difficult shots. And so, yeah, if you're going to take those tough shots, he probably is the best guy. But you don't have to take those tough shots, and he's not good. He's too selfish. He's too much of a ball hog. And so the Lakers actually end up being an average crunch time team, even though they have the personnel to be the best offensive team.
We can pretty easily spell out how many shots a guy took in the last 5 minutes of a close game and how many he made. How many times he went to the line, how many assists he had, how many turnovers he had. And Kobe's numbers were never that good. So it almost seems like there's been this false narrative of his career because he takes so many shots. We remember the ones he made. We don't remember any of the ones he missed. It reminds me a little bit of Reggie Miller and his career. And everybody, because of those 2 Knicks series, everybody has now convinced themselves that this guy was a superstar, and he just wasn't. What other false narrative guys are out there that you think?
Well, the one who's blatantly amazing but hasn't really gotten the attention is Chris Paul. His Hornets are literally the best team by far in crunch time, in terms of their total offense. I don't know if it's because of the shots he takes, but also because of just, using their offense, which is what, I think Kobe doesn't do.
Like, he had so much time. He had time to bend his knees and really, think about it.
And that wasn't the only one. He missed Heath Miller. He overthrew Wallace on a third down play. It might be time to reevaluate Ben Roethlisberger. Maybe we'll do the say what you will about Ben Roethlisberger, but maybe he's not as good as everyone thinks he is.
I was just caught on Jerry Jones' Jumbotron, French kissing my boyfriend Josh Freeman in the luxury box, and then feeding him grapes. Worse yet, that roly-poly idiot Mike McCarthy threw a challenge flag, and the whole stadium got to see it 4 times. What kind of country is this that have to be subjected to such ridicule? My forefathers fought for my independence and privacy. What so proudly we watched at the Friday Night Lights last Gleeman, something like that. I'm so humiliated, I'm coming clean. Now available on paper book, my book. Now I could die with the tip of Josh Freeman's tongue poking my eardrum. That's a vigorous cosign. Con!
Wow.
I have some news for you.
What is it?
I was in the same room as Josh Freeman.
What? You are?
I couldn't go up to him. I didn't want to have that awkward thing where I'm like, hey, I'm Bill Simmons, and then he just looks at me blankly.
Right.
It was like 4-1 odds that he'd actually have heard about the BS report stuff. Let me tell you something about.
I'm going to surprise you one day and get him on this podcast with me. I lost track of time, and it was supposed to be today, but we will do this. We will do this.
I did stare at him for a good 10 minutes.
Big man.
He is the biggest football player who is like a skill position player that I've ever seen.
Really? Like
he looks like, I don't know whether he was wearing boots or what was going on, but he looked like a power forward.
Yeah.
He is a gigantic dude.
Yeah.
I thought Roethlisberger was a big dude. This guy's bigger. He looked like he was like 6'7". Like you looked at him and you go, wow, this guy, I want to buy some Josh Freeman stock.
Yeah, stock.
My man Josh Freeman. No, he's huge. I mean, and maybe that's where the game's going. Is you need these big ass dudes who can.
Size matters to me.
When I was wrestling with WWE, I got kicked in the head in the summer of '03, and it was the first concussion I'd ever thought I had, and it was also the first time I'd ever really had headaches or any serious problems after a hit to the head. My problem was I didn't know anything about concussions, and so I tried to push through symptoms for 5 weeks where every day when I got my blood pressure up, I thought I'd get sick. And eventually I had to stop wrestling. And at that point I started, once I met Dr. Robert Cantu, who ended up being my co-founder of SLI, he was the first doctor to help me understand why my head was hurting all the time.
And hold on, back then, you know, you almost, like fans or even probably people you worked with, like, come on, man, just get back in the ring.
Oh, no.
What's wrong with you?
No question.
You're being a wuss.
You ever had Brad show up, pull you in the corner and say, stop stealing money from the company? What the hell's wrong with you?
Right.
I mean, like, you know, I thought I almost got in fights in the locker room over this. Yeah, I mean, you know, the media jumped all over the steroid thing, and you can't, you know, it was so big all over TV that you can't, like, take that out of people's minds. People that are aware of our work, you know, it's far, far more likely that the brain trauma is the real, you know, spark behind this, not the steroid use, because there's lots of guys with brain trauma who've done these sorts of behaviors, and there's not a lot of guys on the steroid issue who over 3 days have killed their family. And if you talk to anyone who's on the road with Chris the last year of his life, which I have, they all talk about how he was just emotionally losing his mind, you know, crying at bizarre situations. I think his memory had slipped to the point where he had stopped planning matches ahead of time. He would just say, let's call it in the ring, because I don't think he could remember. And so it was a pretty prolific, you know, downfall last year of his life that was just bizarre behaviors, paranoia. We thought people were going to kidnap his kids. So some things we're seeing in a lot of people that we're tracking. So it's but certainly reminiscent of CTE.
What are Sundays going to be like? It's just starting to dawn on me how depressing this is going to be, because there's going to be no sports really at all.
Yeah. I feel like I should choose a new religion or something. I mean, I should like go to some house of worship and you know, make the best of it or something.
We should have kids and spend time with them.
What would that be like?
I don't know.
I mean, a lot of guys are thinking that Mark Few at the end of the day is just a better coach than Steve Lavin. The one thing that I think Steve Lavin has going for him that he didn't have before.
Cheating?
Gene Katie.
Oh.
If this is the second round, that means 60 teams got a first-round bye. Maybe that's how we should look at it now. Can you be one of the top 60 teams? You want to be in the top 60 so you can get that first-round bye in the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, so you just did the Trump roast. Here's my first question. What is in it for the person who's getting roasted?
$2 million.
Is that what they get?
He gave it to charity.
$2 million?
That's what he got.
Is that worth the abuse you take, though?
Trump is making fun of him is a national pastime. He doesn't feel those jokes anymore.
I love when you attack somebody for 7 minutes and you're like, but you're a great guy and I love your spirit, and then you go over. That always cracks me up.
You know, Trump, I had actually roasted him years ago for charity.
Yeah.
You know, and I knew he'd be a little smug and a little stiff.
Yeah.
But you can't help but like somebody better after you roast them, if they take it well.
True.
And Trump really played along. And honestly, during the show, we had a couple of moments, private moments, him and I, during the commercials, about his behavior during the roast. I was essentially, like, coaching him on how to... For the first act of the show, while Seth MacFarlane was emceeing, you'll notice Trump looking straight ahead, reading the teleprompter.
Oh, yeah.
because he's so...
He was reading the people's jokes.
The jokes that Seth MacFarlane was saying about him, and you see him tensing up because he sees each one coming, the punchline, and he doesn't laugh at the right times or at all.
Yeah.
And I said during the commercial, he kind of looked at me for like, how's it going? And he said, this is a lot harsher than I thought it would be. Not just on him, but we were slamming a deaf woman. Each other. That's never happened at a roast. A deaf woman, it was crazy.
Yeah.
Trump's daughter's in the front row. She's pregnant. Yeah. Like, this has got a different dynamic than normal.
He had the daughter and the wife there.
Right. Yeah. So he's definitely up for whatever's going to happen.
I like that you've become the established veteran. You're the closer. You're the last one now at every roast. You're the guy. You're talking to Trump during commercials. The situation's bombing on stage. You go up to help him.
These are all fall under my congressional mandated duties as Roastmaster General.
Was that self-appointed, or did Obama do that?
I think it was during the Eisenhower administration when I was just coming up as a caterer's son. They said someone's going to have to take this from...
Did Buddy Hackett leave that to you in his will?
You know what's the funny thing? I don't jump around off the roast, but I was meeting. You talk about the title, Roastmaster General. I was at Walter Reed American Medical Hospital, Walter Reed Navy Medical Hospital, Bethesda Navy, Walter Reed Army Medical Center in Washington, and I met a guy. He's severely wounded, but has his sense of humor, and he's just a sweet kid. And he looks at me like dumbfounded. He goes, "This has never happened in the history of the world." I go, "What?" He goes, "This week I met the Roastmaster General and the Postmaster General." This kid started busting my chops because the Postmaster General had come in and given him some special award because this kid delivered mail for the Army, Is there a Mostmaster General? I'm trying to think. Well, I guess there was a Toastmaster General. He finally got the hang of not looking at the teleprompter and trying to have fun. So he calls me back over during the next commercial. He's like, "Now what?" I go, "Well, you ready for phase 2 now?" He said, "What?" I said, "You don't have to laugh, but just smile. Yeah. And then the cameras will cut to you instead of the audience laughing at you. And you'll be on the show more, and it'll be all about you." And he's like, "Now I understand.
I get it now." As a dad of a daughter, it was just brutal. I was like, "Oh, you go after the daughters. That's tough."
Well, I did the one Trump joke where I said, "We have a lot in common. We both love New York. We both play golf, and we both fantasize about your daughter." I said, "Shaq, it's really great to be here for your children's charity. I just want you to know that, are you going to have a good sense of humor? Like, have you ever done anything like this kind of a thing?" Yeah. And he just looked at me straight up. He said, "Nobody ever told me to hold back on a basketball court. I don't want you to hold back out on the dais."
I love Shaq.
And I was like, wow, what a first-rate move, Yeah. So then I had the License to Kill.
It's great.
I mean, the ridiculous thing is the coverage that they get in the newspaper, probably because it's the only game in town. But, I mean, when UConn makes the Final 8, they have font in the Current that's reserved for, Japanese bomb Pearl Harbor. President Kennedy shot in Dallas. UConn makes Elite 8. It was on the front page above the fold today. They had showed a picture of Auriemma with his head in his hands. And I'm like, oh, my God, what happened? Did, somebody on the team die? And it was just that they struggled. They only won by 5 in their Sweet 16 game. Above the fold, front page. Not in the sports, the front page of the newspaper.
What's he got now? 14 Masters? 14.
He's got 14 majors.
Yeah, he'll get 30.
30?
Yeah.
I wish we could bet on this.
All right, he'll get 30.
I hate making a bet that would take 25 years to complete. I call you 2033. You owe me $100. Who's this?
Oh, yeah, you're right. It would take all the time until he died. Jason Nash.
Jason Nash.
Yeah.
Why do I know that name? Hockey?
No, basketball.
Steve Nash.
No, Jason Kidd.
Jason Kidd.
They're both you can see the similarities between Jason Kidd and Steve Nash.
Canadian hero, Steve Nash.
Canadian hero, Steve Nash. And, third athlete, Peyton Manning.
Peyton Manning?
Yeah.
What do you like about Peyton Manning?
Well, one time I was coming out of the Four Seasons hotel in New York City, New York.
Yeah.
And Peyton Manning was there, and he said, hey, Norm, I like you. Ever since then, there's something about him I liked.
That won you over.
So now I always root for Peyton Manning. Now, plus, like,
debate that this guy might not be innocent. So you kept in the updates, you kept twisting the knife with the jokes, but like it felt like there was some real conviction.
Well, because I really, I knew a lot of black guys were my buddies, and I was like, really? You think he's innocent? And they were like, yeah, good guy. So it was like they knew he was guilty, but they weren't, they were willing to. And I didn't understand it.
Yeah.
Until Beretta killed his wife.
Oh.
And then suddenly I go, now I know why all the black guys are saying that. Because I was like, nah, he's innocent, because I loved Beretta. Like when I was a kid, that was a great Beretta. And then, and so Beretta had the worst alibi of all time, I remember. He was like, no, I didn't shoot my wife. It couldn't have been me. I have an alibi. At the time, I was picking up my gun in a restaurant. So how could it be me? I was in the restaurant getting my gun. I came back. My wife was shot. I don't know what happened. She had a gunshot in the head. The book, if I did it, he puts it out pretty plainly. I haven't read it yet.
If I did it, here's how I would have done it.
Yeah, when he wrote that book, apparently.
It's kind of an unbelievable book.
Yeah. It's pretty...
I read this book by Bill James.
It's its own genre.
Yeah. It really is.
No, and in my hand I have a bird. If you say A, I will crush the bird, or perhaps I'll set him free. If you say B, I will crush the bird, or else I will set him free. It is up to you, old man, wise old man. You just say A or B, and we'll see what happens with the bird. The wise old man said, son, the bird is in your hand. Ladies and gentlemen, the bird is in your hand. Thank you. 2 minutes later, not guilty. Every time. That's all they remember. They don't remember any of the evidence. They're like, that bird story makes a good point there, We can't risk killing a bird. So, anyways.
You had the WNBA draft. I told you to.
We're going to look at that today.
Yeah, you might want to look at the WNBA draft for episode 2.
Yeah.
It's pretty interesting.
Yeah, there's a lot of talk about that young girl out of the She-Gophers.
The
what? The She-Gophers?
The She-Gophers.
Yeah, why don't they just have their own name? Why do they just have to put She before them?
Or the Lady. They do the Lady.
Yeah, the Lady Huskies.
My favorite was the Lady Gamecocks.
The Lady Gamecocks.
Lady Gamecocks. Yeah. Can you have a Lady Gamecock?
No,
Probably
that
not.
doesn't seem right.
Maybe we want to switch that into something else.
Yeah, they should. Yeah, why do they have that? They know. Why don't they just go by Rooster?
That'd be interesting.
Yeah.
Or the Hens. The Lady Hens.
Yeah. We don't need to hear that word more. Roosters. We got roosters, hens. They can retire that other one.
Yeah.
Huh? The Olympics, I think, is when it started to become a sensation. I started to learn all these things, For instance, The Rock. Do you know what that's made out of? I always took it for granted. But it's...
Let's talk about the Lakers, since you're the number one Laker watcher, in my opinion. You've been watching them for your entire life, basically, and you go to a lot of these games because you're single and you don't have a wife and kids at home.
Nothing better to do.
Yeah, you get to say, it's a Tuesday night. Screw it, I'll go down there and check out this Lakers-Grizzlies game. I wish I had that luxury, and I probably will after my wife divorces me. But
you might not make it through these playoffs. I'm praying for you and for your family, but the way these playoffs are going to be, you might not make it.
It could be bad. I'm a little worried.
I kind of enjoy it, but I must say that, literally, having lived, 47 years of being the only buster, generally speaking, that I know other than dogs and cats, I can't tell you how many times I've either, been on set at ESPN or I'm sitting at home and all of a sudden I hear someone say buster on TV and my heart goes from about 60 beats to about 180 because I'm thinking, oh my God, was someone talking to me? Was I supposed to be doing something?
Right.
I'm thinking a producer's trying to get in my ear, but, so I'm getting used to the idea that he's taken over Buster and running with it.
I have friends who like them, and
sure.
So I was kind of monitored what was going on, and Russell Martin was basically a dead fish up there, and now all of a sudden he can hit again.
I don't know.
The 604.
Maybe he didn't like the warm weather in LA. He's Canadian. He needed to be cold. It's cold and rainy here in New York, in the Northeast now, so maybe he likes that better.
I'd like to see him pee in a cup just to be safe. The 604 slugging percentage is a little suspicious for me.
He's hitting the cover off the ball.
Yeah.
He's been huge for them, and he's an upgrade defensively. I'm just going to move on from your aspersions that you're casting.
When I'm the sports czar, there's going to be 10 people every month that would just be no questions asked, pee in a cup. I just want to look at it. Jason Kidd playing really well in those first 2 playoff games. Listen, congratulations there, Jason, but just give me a sample. I'm just going to test this for everybody's sake. I just want to be sure.
Your urine.
Yeah, I'm not accusing you of anything. I just want to look at it.
Because the public loves Dallas and is betting in that direction, and the wise guys, their head is telling them that Miami is the better team and that they should win this series. And if the price gets a little bit closer to what they want, they will bet that series price. But certainly everybody's heart is with Dallas. And I think when you get yourself, when you get teams in a championship situation, whether it be the Super Bowl, the World Series, whatever, people tend to bet sentimentally more than they bet rationally.
Huh. It doesn't hurt to be on the side of the wise guys.
No.
I like the sound of that.
Another bet I really like. Will Mike Bibby decompose at any point in this series? 5-1. Do you like that one?
Those don't sound like very good odds.
He's on the line right now. The king of Miami, Dan LeBatard.
This was the most fun I've ever had covering a team. Anytime, any sport. Gosh, this team was so interesting in so many different ways. I'm honestly, a piece of sports fan in me had died because of the mundane redundancy of so many regular seasons. This was so much different than that. It was a lot of fun.
Well, so the Miami fans were, a little testy. They didn't really like being the villain. They were firing back at any media people that dared to criticize the team. They're firing back at other fans. How are they feeling these days? What is their state of mind like right now?
Well, I would say it's hollow, it's haunted, it's hungover, it's heartbroken. I mean, you emotionally invest this way, and you get that loud because, it was loud around this team. And you become obnoxious, as any fan base does when it gets filled with arrogance or entitlement or the best players or whatever. And so then you have to shut up. And that hurts, and it'll make you defensive. And imagine how this felt. What is the team that you've covered or been a fan of that was most hated nationally and internationally? Because I
know exactly how it feels. It was the Spygate Patriots. That whole season, you feel like you're under attack. It's basically just you and the other fans in your team, and you're firing back at everybody, and you're angry, and you take everything personally. That's exactly the same thing. And
I would say in that instance, A, you had actually won something. B, you had been caught cheating.
Right.
Neither of those elements were in play here, so it made everybody pretty defensive and pretty
well.
I found interesting, too, because I know they were coming after you a little bit. There's no place to put that anger, so what you end up doing is you end up putting it on the media faces and voices that represent it, because the other people who are doing it, the rest of America, all the people at the San Francisco Giants game who are cheering when the Game 6 score comes up and it shows that Dallas has beaten Miami,
right.
Those are faceless people, whereas you and Wilbon and Bucher and
Barkley.
You guys have faces and voices, so you become the punching bags for that stuff.
Just to clarify, we're not positive that there was no cheating yet. I'm not willing to cross that one off. We still don't know what happened last summer. Okay. We still don't know when people were being talked to and when this plan was hatched. I would say 8-1 odds that something comes out at some point.
Is anyone investigating it, though? Because Stern's not. I mean, I know Dan Gilbert's got his private investigators on it. That issue.
Dan Gilbert has been, Windhorst said this on my podcast. Dan Gilbert has been investigating this for like a year. But, it really does. The more you talk to people, it really doesn't seem like, it seems like this scenario was in play. But LeBron also, he went down the Clippers road. He went down the Knicks road. Like, I don't know what to think anymore. But is there going to be a scapegoat for this? Chris Bosh? Spoelstra?
A scapegoat? No, I mean, doesn't it all fall on LeBron? Or do you mean, is somebody going to be gone?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, there were 2 games from winning the championship. Well, that wouldn't show very much perspective if you start, you're going to blow up something that is young can improve, and was was not even 2 games, was 9 points up in the fourth quarter of Game 4 from winning the championship?
Here's my counter to that. I'm not sure Bosch was a great fit, and I'm not sure he's a great fit going forward, and you need that Tyson Chandler guy on a team like this. That type of guy, like Garnett in 2008, Chandler this year, the rebounder, shot blocker, kind of fills in all the blanks, front court guy. Bosch isn't that guy, so either you find somebody to put next to him, or you trade Bosch for the pieces that get somebody like that and more.
He overcame all those. I mean, I'd agree with you that the pieces don't fit ideally, that you'd rather have pieces that fit the way the Celtics pieces fits, or you'd rather have, I think maybe you'd even rather have, say, LeBron, Dwight Howard, and Bosch, or Wade, Dwight Howard, and Bosch. But they overcame all of that right up until they didn't. I mean, they beat the MVP of the league and the team that won. You know what I mean? Like they had overcome all of that right until the moment that Dallas hit more threes than any team in the finals ever has, and Miami's defense kind of inexplicably collapsed, and LeBron James wasn't LeBron James. To me, I still have yet to hear a good explanation, any good explanations for one of the most mystifying things I've ever seen in sports, which is LeBron James couldn't get to the line and couldn't play his averages because he couldn't get to the line. You don't have guys who are 25-point scorers become 17-point scorers in the finals. That never happened.
Somebody that I know in NBA circles said that the book on LeBron has always been, if you could just keep him from getting to the rim, he will eventually just give up and not have a plan B. And that's always been the book, but most teams didn't have the right personnel to do that. Like the Celtics tried to do that, and they just couldn't pull it off. They didn't have the right guys. The Bulls, they didn't have the right people at the swing spots to kind of keep him and Wade in check. And for whatever reason, Dallas had the right guys. It's weird.
Well, why could they keep? And I'm not sure I'm buying that, only because I have not heard a good explanation yet. Why couldn't they keep Wade from the rim? The idea that a team can do that a defense, a genius, a philosophy can do that. LeBron James, I've never seen it before. What do you mean he can't get to the rim against any defense, against Jason Kidd, against a backcourt of Kidd, Terry, and Barea?
I know. Well, they did throw the zone, but yeah, I wrote about it in yesterday's column. There were specific examples of that game where, he's on the right side, he's got Barea on him, and he's swinging the ball back the other way, and it's like, what are you doing?
Yep, I know. To me, it's inexplicable. To me, you're talking about trading Bosch, and I'm sitting here scratching my head. You'd agree with this, right? You'd agree that he didn't have to be better than his averages, that if LeBron James is merely the average LeBron James, not escalating his play in the playoffs, simply what LeBron James is, you'd agree that we wouldn't be talking about trading Bosch, correct?
Yeah, that's true, but you can't trade LeBron. Or can you?
No, well, I'm just saying we wouldn't be talking about trading anybody. We would be talking about, holy these guys changed the paradigm. It didn't matter that Dallas was a great team, or that Chicago was a great team, or that Boston was a great team. They just took a vat of talent to that, and it didn't even matter that the pieces didn't fit.
So, you feel like this is salvageable?
Yeah, why wouldn't it be? Like, you feel it's not?
I don't know. I don't know what to think anymore. I don't know what happened to LeBron this year. I don't know what happened to him in the Boston series. I don't know if this is just who he is. I don't know if him and Wade, that can't work once the stage gets too big. You can't have two alpha dogs. Like, it just can't work. I don't know what to think.
Well, here's what I think, because you end up being right. You end up being right in saying that the Miami Heat can't win the championship, and you were saying it all year. You were doubting whether they could win the championship, and you end up being right, but I think that your reasons on being right aren't right. I don't think it was alpha dog related. They managed the alpha dog thing fine. I don't think it was bench related because of Dallas's role players, because Udonis Haslem came back, and Miami's bench scored 40 points in one of the games that LeBron lost.
But we disagree on this, because I do think that you need 8 guys to win, and I just don't think Miami had the guys, as evidenced by the fact that Eddie House played 21 minutes in a must-win game. This is a guy who was buried on the bench. Like, they never could figure out who their guys were, and that's why they lost, I think.
but if I were to say to you, everything's the same, Bill. Bench is the same. No, they don't have 8 guys. They're playing Eddie House in Game 6, 20 minutes. And LeBron plays to his averages. If LeBron is himself, your answer to that is what?
I don't think it was ever a real team. I felt like it was these 3 guys, and you never got anything from Mike Miller, which was that was the one thing none of us could have predicted, that he just was never going to get there. He had Haslam, you knew you could go to war with. Chalmers turned out pretty well. But basically, that was it. You had 5 guys. And I don't think you can win the title with 5 guys. I still stick by that.
Could they have won the title with 5 guys if LeBron had been himself?
But he wasn't. And maybe part of the reason he wasn't was because he knew that they didn't have a good enough nucleus that he had to have an awesome game every game. And now this Dallas team comes in. They're in his head a little bit. They're fouling him hard. They're not letting him get through him. And he just kind of collapsed, I feel like.
He collapsed, and their defense collapsed. Their defense, the things that were true early in the series where they were holding Dallas under 40%, and then next thing you know, Dallas shoots 42% from 3 and makes more threes than any team has ever made in the finals. And, I mean, the one that was mystifying to me, the one that just blew me away was the last one, the last game where Dirk is terrible.
Yep.
The Dallas Mavericks win in Miami by 10 points. They're less healthy than Miami.
Huge free throw.
A huge free throw disparity where the refs just seem to be trying to get the game to Game 7. I mean, basically double the free throws for Miami. You give 2 fouls to Nowitzki and 2 fouls to Chandler in the first quarter right away.
Yeah.
And that game is the one that is less close than any of them. That game is less close than even the game where Dallas went 13 of 19 from 3. That was the one game where you didn't feel like Miami at any point really was going to win the game. That was just mystifying to me, as were many things in this series, and it's why this was so great, because I think basketball way too often is too predictable. And this wasn't. I mean, Dallas's run through the postseason was not that.
I advanced 2 theories in yesterday's column. Wanted to see what you thought of them. The first was that LeBron was never the same after Wade yelled at him with 3 minutes to go in Game 3. You buy that or no?
I don't buy that because Dwayne Wade yelled at him the same way in the Boston series on the court in front of everybody before that overtime game, or at the end of the fourth quarter of that overtime game after LeBron had turned the ball over. And I asked LeBron about that a couple of days later. I asked him, have you ever had a teammate yell at you like that, talk to you like that? And he said, no, never. They've looked at me to go win a game. They've never, undressed me like that where they're yelling at me. And he said he appreciated it. Now, you could say that he didn't like that. I mean, or that he was lying, or that he was trying to diffuse a controversy. But he told me that he liked that he had a guy like that at his side, that he respected so much, of this caliber, who could yell at him like that.
All right, but let's flip that around for a second. Can you be one of the 10 best players in the league and just be yelled at on national TV on a basketball court in front of 20,000 fans by another teammate?
In dabbling in some psychobabble here, I would tell you that all season long he has taken a little brother, big brother relationship with Dwayne, and this is a small snapshot of symbolism, but it's so. If you ever watch them walking around, Bill, if you watch them walk over to interviews with us after practice, LeBron would walk behind Dwayne. You saw the coughing video. LeBron's behind Dwayne. When they walk in and do their press conferences, LeBron looks over to Dwayne sometimes before answering, or to have him answer. I mean, it was always like that. I don't know what that means. I don't know whether it matters or not, but their relationship has been since the beginning. LeBron in the back. I mean, LeBron's introduced first before games. Dwayne's introduced last, so that he could get the big end of the applause.
Right.
All the pictures they took before the season, it was always Dwayne in the middle. Like, do what you will with those symbols, but he took on a little brother relationship since he got here.
Maybe that, digging a little deeper, maybe that's what part of the problem was. In Cleveland it wasn't like that. That was his team. And maybe he goes to this team and all of a sudden he's the little brother, and never could kind of figure out how to be the little brother but also take over these games. And the weird thing is it seemed like he'd figured it out in the Chicago series and even in game 1 of the finals. And that's what I don't get. Why it just disappeared.
Yeah, that's the mystifying thing. Like, you can't tell me, for all the psychoanalysis that's going on of this guy, Bill, you can't tell me that he can play that way against Chicago and then be afraid a game later.
Yeah.
He could play that way against Boston, and then all of a sudden, after all of this scrutiny for years and for the last 11 months, that suddenly something would fire off in his head that would make everything melt down. I would tell you, I was saying during the Chicago and Boston series, as he hit those shots, Bill, these aren't shots he should be taking. That's the shot any team in the league wants him to take. The one he took in front of Big Baby Davis, sandwiched between Big Baby Davis on the corner and Paul Pierce. The threes he was taking against Chicago. He was finishing these teams with that shot, but that's not the shot that you want him taking if you're his coach. He misses them 2/3 of the time.
Can I just say something? I said this on your show, and everybody jumped on me. I said this after the Boston series. I was like, LeBron took most of the shots that Boston was very excited for him to take, and they just went in. Mm-hmm. And now I'm looking back at that Boston series, and Pierce getting thrown out in game 1, and Rondo getting hurt in game 3, and then not finishing in regulation when you have the ball with a chance to win. And I wonder if you play that series 10 times, what the results are.
Well, Rondo getting hurt, that changes everything because what Miami was able to do to Chicago and Boston was take away the point guard and short circuit the offense.
It was done at that point.
They weren't able to do that to Dallas.
And then the random James Jones game. What happened to him? Was he kidnapped? He got hurt, right? But he wasn't hurt enough that he just had to be scratched from the finals?
I can't believe after these finals, after everything circling around LeBron, about 14 minutes for you to make it about James Jones.
It just bothers me. James Jones single-handedly won game 1.
How are you making the conversation about James Jones 14 minutes in? This happened with this Heat team all season. Eric Dampier is the starting center, never to be seen from again. Ilgauskas is the starting center. Somebody abducted him. All of a sudden, Eddie House is playing in Game 6 a million minutes. James Jones was healthy. There was one game in Dallas that was funny, Bill, because James Jones thought he was being called into the game in Dallas, and he starts running up, and Spoelstra literally pushes him by the chest and pushes him back to the bench because he was calling for Eddie House. He thought that was the better matchup against Barea.
James Jones killed the Celtics and got Paul Pierce thrown out of game 1 and then was never seen again. I could write a whole book about that series. The other thing...
No, that book will not sell if your first chapter or any of the first 14 are about James Jones.
What about... do you feel like Spoelstra, is he in danger here? Like there's obviously the Pat Riley stuff is flying around, but you never know if that's true or not. Like Spoelstra comes back next year, right?
I think so. I don't think that they have the lack of perspective that it's easy to have when a season ends that way. I mean, again, because the last game was so weird, Bill, because the last game didn't feel like the others, it sort of feels like that series was less close than it actually was. Or it feels like the Heat were less close to actually winning the championship than they were. The only time that Dallas felt like they were in control of that series was at the end when they were in control of that series. It's not like Dallas had the fourth quarter leads of 15 points and 9 points on the road. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, I wrote this yesterday. Even at halftime of Game 6, when it really seemed like Dallas was going to win the title, just had that feeling. Vegas still had Miami favored to win the game. It was
If I had told you, how about if I tell you, Bill? If I tell you, Game 5, Dwayne comes out of the locker room, hits the 3 to give him a 4-point lead with 4 minutes left. Is Miami losing that game?
I thought Game 4, people thought it was a reverse jinx tweet. I wish it was, but I tweeted with like 9 minutes left or something. Miami was up 9. Dallas caught a timeout. They were beaten in the huddle, and I was sitting behind their bench. I was like, wow, this is over. This is done. And it really wasn't a reverse jinx tweet. It worked out that way, but at that specific point, I thought that series was over. I would have bet anything.
Did you see what I'm saying, though? So from that point, really, a 3-game losing streak means start trading pieces and fire the coach? Like,
I like this. I like that you're a voice of sanity with this whole thing.
I just don't think Pat Riley's going to run his organization that way, is what I'm saying. Like, he's got an interesting hypothetical would be, and I had a conversation with a former coach immediately after Game 6 about this. Right now, he said, right now, trade LeBron James for Dwight Howard. Do it right now.
Wow.
And my thought process was, how do you do that to LeBron James? How cold? If you're Pat Riley, to me it was a fascinating hypothetical, just because Pat Riley's only obligation is to make the team better. But how cold would it be if you basically send him to Cleveland with the Disney World? You send him to Cleveland with the Disney World to get pieces that fit better.
That would be. I honestly think the internet would explode if that happened.
And which way though? Because they dislike LeBron so much. Like, would they be happy that he got
No, he'd be an immediately sympathetic figure. I think that's going to happen anyway. I think this is just the way America works. Like, you think about all the antipathy toward Tiger Woods the first 9 months after his whole car crash and everything that came out, and then, you know, within a year, most people are rooting for him again. People want these guys deep down to succeed, I think. And
well, it's interesting. I agree with you, because I had that feeling. Hawk, my radio producer, had the feeling during the middle of that Tiger Woods stuff where he was just banging on Tiger Woods, demanding a confession, demanding an apology. And then finally Tiger Woods comes out, and within 5 seconds, his visceral reaction is like, oh, no, why did I want this? This isn't what I wanted. This isn't what I wanted.
Right.
And it feels like that with LeBron James. I already saw it sort of taking place during the finals when that question was asked of him disrespectfully after a victory. All of a sudden I saw that fans and some media types said that was kind of a tipping point where it was like, oh, wait, there's something out there that I like less than LeBron James, and it's the media.
Right. Although, he's never made it easy on himself, and every decision that he's made, you could argue, was not a great decision or a bad decision, right down to, he doesn't just show any remorse for anything. And I think that's what makes people mad. It's like, even after Game 6, did you feel like this guy was, like, devastated? Shouldn't he have been devastated by what happened?
He should have been, but here's the thing with him that makes it difficult to be him, Bill, and I'm with you. He doesn't seem to give off in the veneer very much in other than arrogance and not a lot of weakness. But given the way his season plays out, if he collapses in the hallway like Chris Bosh, won't people mock that? Anything he says, aren't people going to dissect it and find a way not to like it because they're looking through the filter of rooting against him? So he finds himself in a point where he's doing a press conference. Obviously, he's hurt, vulnerable. Obviously, he is hurt and vulnerable before America. But the response is going to be a defensive one. It's going to be you. It's not going to be. It's not going to be to show you hurt and vulnerable. Why would he do that? You're going to pick that apart too.
I thought he would have been much better off going that direction.
I agree with you. If he had gone the Derrick Rose route, my fault, on me, I blew it. But again, I mean, gosh, it's easy in the theoretical when you're separated from it to say, yeah, just show us your soul here, LeBron. We can be trusted with it. We'll be kind and gentle. Show us your soul, how you're broken, and we'll react in the right way. He doesn't have any evidence over the last 11 months that would suggest that we will react gently if he behaves weak or if he shows us weakness.
Yeah, and I think he's obviously way too self-aware, and it seems like even when you look at the decision and how right as he was about to say what team it was going to be, he had to do that pause and do this is going to be hard. And it was like he was reading off a teleprompter. I never felt real. You just don't feel a connection between where his soul is and where the words are with some of the stuff he says. And I think that's people's problem with him, is they never know what's genuine with him and what's not. You agree with that?
Well, did you say that you think he's self-aware? Because I don't think he's self-aware.
I think he's a weird kind of self-aware. I think he's really self-aware, and yet he's not as self-aware at all. I think he thinks in terms of how are people perceiving this? If I do this, what will people think then? But his markings are all wrong. The decisions that he makes are just the wrong decisions. It's weird.
Because I don't view him as A-Rod. A-Rod was calculated that way. A-Rod's the only athlete I've covered that was most interested in how he would be received.
Right. That's fair.
I don't get the impression that LeBron. I think LeBron would like to be liked, but I don't think A-Rod would ever give the press conference in which he says, "Hey, my life is better than you after the loss. You have to go back to your personal problems."
That's a good point. But you have to say LeBron is somewhat self-aware, though, because the decision is something that he thought was a really good idea that would help his brand.
I think self-involved. I think he's been a child star forever. I think you and I have talked before about
Yeah, we have.
Drew Barrymore was a child star in cocaine rehab at 12 or 13 years old. I don't think you grow up normal that way, especially given what little we know of his family life, which doesn't sound like it's very good, his upbringing. So I think we just create a fame mutant, don't we?
Well, I do. I wrote this yesterday. I do feel like he's surrounded by enablers. There's no question. And I don't think that he has anybody in his life who can just look him in the eye and go, "This is wrong. You shouldn't do this. You need to think this way." I don't think that person exists. And it just, I don't think he has bad people around him. I think that I've met most of them. They're nice people. I just don't.
You criticize Dwayne Wade for doing that to him in front of people.
I actually don't criticize Dwayne Wade. I thought that was the right thing to do. I just think that I don't think LeBron is too good that it ever should have come to that point that another teammate has to undress him in a crunch time. The guy's the most talented player of the last 30 years.
Dwayne Wade's not enabling him, is what I'm telling you. Their relationship is not. That's not what's happening there.
I was talking about LeBron's circle. You're talking about Maverick, his high school buddies, World Wide West, Leon Rose, those guys. I don't.
Telling you, the daily influence here is Dwayne Wade. They are friends like that. I understand what you're saying. I understand.
Yeah.
There are a bunch of other people who are simply profiting off of him. But what I'm telling you is that Big Brother Dwayne Wade, theirs is a mutual beneficial relationship. Theirs is shared responsibility, shared respect. That's a peer. You remember how did you not think it was odd that Federer and Tiger Woods became such close friends?
Were they legitimately close friends though, or was that a media thing?
It seemed like they were close friends. They were going to each other's tournaments and stuff. It just seemed like they became friends because they had commonalities. Both of them could look and see some of the same things, and that's how we become friends with a lot of people. Shared experiences, shared commonalities, and I would theorize, again, these are all theories and we're all playing pop psychologists, but I would theorize that one of the reasons that LeBron came here to be with Dwayne and gave up everything he gave up to be in Dwayne's city, on Dwayne's team, and all the things that got him criticized for is because he's searching for what it is that you're talking about. It's because this guy, he respects this guy so much that's what their friendship is. And I assure you, Dwayne tells him what he thinks and how he thinks. And as cumbersome, I asked Dwayne about this recently, as cumbersome as in this testosterone world, where even during these NBA playoffs, you've had two guys hit with homosexual slurs, fines. I asked Dwayne, do you love him? Do you love LeBron James? Do you love him? And he got uncomfortable with it, but he's like, yeah, I love this dude.
So you think this whole experience will actually make them closer?
I don't know. I don't know. This will test a friendship. I don't know. It could also destroy them. It'd be real easy for ego and all of these things and blame. It'd be easy for them to not be friends after this, but it's one of the fascinating parts of the experiment to me.
Well, here's where the problem could come, when the entourages get involved. You even saw this a little bit when the Heat started out, 9-8, and somebody in LeBron's entourage obviously leaked something to a reporter that, Spoelstra basically threw Spoelstra under the bus. And maybe LeBron didn't know about it, maybe he did, but it came from his circle. And if, as the summer plays along, if you have a grenade launch from one of the entourage guys toward Wade or vice versa, that can end up causing an issue that, it has nothing to do with the two of them, but it's just the people around them. That I'll be interested to see if that happens.
That's why they do their press conferences together, because they don't want the media to be able to run back and forth with, hey, did you hear what LeBron said in his press conference? Dwayne, did you hear what LeBron said about you? LeBron, did you hear what Dwayne said about you? They're right there next to each other. That's why they're doing the press conferences that way. That's not an ego thing. That's not a stardom thing. That's because they want to try and rise above some of the petty conflicts that can appear. But Dwayne's not an entourage guy anymore, Bill. He had a messy. Dwayne's very grown up.
Yeah.
He had that messy, awful divorce with his wife, awful public divorce, got his kids back, and, is now locked down with Gabrielle Union. And his life is not what LeBron's life is.
LeBron's life is more fun, it sounds like.
Well, it doesn't sound like LeBron's life is very fun at all. Right?
Well, I'm not talking about the media part. I'm talking about seems like he's out. He enjoyed South Beach this season. We could all agree.
Yes.
He was out. We heard all the stories. I would be interested to see if any of this translates into him developing a jump hook or a spin move or a fall away, which are the three things I'd like to see from him.
That'll be fascinating to see whether this could be, as Michael Jordan was questioned. People forget this, but the first 7 years in the league, the conversation was, well, you can't win that way. He's selfish. He's a ball hog. He doesn't share the ball. He'll never win. He can't win that way. And then it changed. So we'll see what happens with LeBron.
See, I would use a different Jordan example. I think when he came back from baseball and he had that bad Orlando series and everybody said, shouldn't have come back. It's over. New generation. And then he just disappeared all summer. And he came out in the best shape of his career. He had that fall-away jumper that came at, all of a sudden he had a low post game. Nobody knew where it came from. And he just unleashed holy hell on the entire league. And, as a basketball fan, I want that to happen for LeBron. I want to see him get to that level. I want to see him take all of this personally. And I just don't know if he will. I really don't.
Well, what do you think? What do you think will happen? Because I don't think any of us know, and I think that's why, the NBA and everybody else owes him an odd debt of gratitude, because it wouldn't have been good, Bill. It wouldn't have been good for the sport or for the way people feel about sports.
Right.
For Miami to win the title this year.
I was saying this to somebody yesterday. This was like you had a smash hit television show that just did huge ratings, and nobody knew if it was going to be renewed for next year. And then Dallas beating Miami meant, hey, we're bringing it back. Season 2. The Miami soap opera is back. Yeah. And that's what this is. If they win the title, it's just not as fun anymore.
I think it would have been really something that would have been just dispiriting for sports fans. Like, it's better that Miami feel this way than the entire country feel this way about sports and this sport, because they really did rejuvenate it, and now you've got, now we all wonder. We wonder, does this break him? Because you got plenty of people predicting that, Bill.
Yeah.
Plenty of people predicting that he's going to become Tiger Woods and just everything's going to go off the rails. Or is he mentally strong enough? Is he confident enough that he will use this as fuel and be intent on crushing people next season?
And remember, like a year ago, we thought Tiger was the single most compelling athlete, and that nothing could top this whole thing. This guy hits rock bottom. He's trying to rebuild his career and his life, and now he's playing golf again, and this was the best story. LeBron has just blown that out of the water. This is LeBron, because I don't know if Tiger, I'm starting to think he might never make it. LeBron is different. He's in the prime of his career. He's now looking at, 7 years or 8 years he's been in the league? I can't remember, but
Seven? What is it? 8?
Yeah, he finished 7. So now, could happen fairly soon. Nobody's talking about it. He's got the 3-year out. So conceivably, you might only have 2 Miami years left, and then he might decide if they don't win a title or if it doesn't work out or blah, 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 I need to go somewhere else. So I do feel like there's a little bit of a time limit on this.
Well, Tiger Woods, what people have Tiger Woods mentally snapping, and what gets lost in that, because understandably the coverage was so loud and everything that happened in his life makes it an easy place to go, even though it might be a false positive, is that mentally he has fried himself. But he's 35, so golfers at that age, you look at anybody who's won majors, it's pretty rare to keep winning after 35. I know it's an older person's game, But no, after 35, you look at the numbers, you will find that there aren't a lot of guys who keep winning a bunch of majors after 35. This guy's still young. I wonder though whether the number of miles and the way he plays will make his prime smaller than somebody else's prime. We just saw Dirk Nowitzki, what he could do at 32 in that sport. I wonder, can LeBron do this physical specimen, this extraterrestrial, can he do with all the miles on this body at a professional level? Can he do at 32, 33, 34? Can Dwayne do at 32, 33, 34 what Dirk just did and what Michael Jordan did at that age?
Back quickly on your Tiger point, I think the other thing that we just didn't realize was how banged up his body was. And I don't think his knees are ever going to be the same, and you need knees to play golf, and he's always going to have a slight handicap there. The LeBron point, I totally agree. I think I wrote this after Game 5. He's one of those diner menus that has the 6 pages of options to, we have all this food, and then you say, well, what's good? And the waitress says everything. That's LeBron right now, and he doesn't have that high post game like Dirk has. He doesn't have that fall away low post game that Jordan developed. And if he doesn't develop that, there's going to be a point when you just can't rest on the athleticism anymore. You're going to have a plan B, and he doesn't have it.
He has to, because you've seen very quietly Kobe Bryant has reinvented himself. Later in life, all of these guys realize, holy it's hard to get your points at the rim. All of them realize it. And Kobe Bryant, he became a jump shooter. And good luck getting the game winners at the rim, incidentally, because all Michael Jordan's game winners are jump shots. You cannot get those at the rim. I couldn't believe Dirk got 2 of them in this series at the rim, but normally the game winners are not at the rim. You have to, and he has a mid-range game, Bill. Like outside of Dirk, statistically, he shot 47% from mid-range this season, and that was second in the league among guys who shot as much as he did. This year anyway, he was a better mid-range shooter than Carmelo, than Wade, than anybody but Dirk.
Okay, but we both know what's going to make or break his career is whether he develops the low post game. Because he's unstoppable down there, because he can play 4 positions, because of his passing. If he had a real low post game in that series, Dallas has no chance. It would have been a 5-game series and Dallas would have lost. But because they were able to the big move was when they switched Kidd and Marion, and they were able to guard Wade with Marion and put Kidd on LeBron because they knew LeBron wasn't going to post up Jason. And even Barea a couple times guarded him in Game 6. They knew LeBron wasn't going to take him down low. The one time he did, he got a charge. So if this guy cares at all about being one of the greatest players of all time, then that's how he's got to spend his summer. And maybe he doesn't. Maybe he's happy with his life right now. He might be like Shaq, Shaq, I think, feels like Shaq had a great career. I think he feels...
So that Riley's going to impress that upon him, no?
Yeah, but look at Shaq. Shaq is a guy that was in really good shape once in his prime. And he was fine with it. He's like, I'll use the regular season. I'll play myself in shape. I'm going to have fun. I'm going to be Shaq. And if LeBron's wired that way, he's just never going to get there. I don't think.
But Shaq did win 4 titles.
Well, Shaq won. He was right. He played in 00, 01. Well, 00 he's in shape. 01 and 02 he played himself in shape during the season and then was able to turn it on in the playoffs. But Shaq was also 7'3" and 350 pounds. And there's nobody like him in the league. LeBron, I don't think, can physically overpower people. We just learned. He can do it some of the time, but not maybe when it matters. It could be fascinating. It's great for you, LeBatard. I hope you were writing a journal during this whole thing. And that's why the 72-win Bulls and then them winning 69 the next year, I think, ranks among one of the great achievements in sports, because it's one thing to just win 72 games, but when every one of those games is a playoff game for the other team, that's a whole other animal. And every time Miami played this year, if they were on the road, it was a playoff game for the other team. So they played 41 playoff games on the road, basically. It didn't matter where it was or how bad the other team was. It was the best the other team had to offer and the best the opposing crowd had to offer. And that's what I think people forget to factor that in.
It's a great point. I would add to that this would have been, if they had been able to close this out for those same reasons, this would have ended up being one of the most remarkable championship runs we had ever seen, because in the case you're talking about, Michael Jordan, everywhere he went, it was still love.
Yeah, that's true.
it wasn't negative. What was surrounding him wasn't negative. He just had to try really hard and bring maximum effort. But he was never being engulfed with just all this garbage, all this garbage that LeBron James endured all year. Let me ask you this. You heard the comments he made after this last game. Charles Barkley, a couple of weeks ago on our radio show, said he said the same thing much less tactfully, much more bluntly. He said, he said of Miami fans throwing things at him and saying that he was ringless. He's saying, man, do you know how much better my life is than yours? You work at McDonald's. I'm very, very rich and successul. Like, he said just that. There wasn't any undertone. He said it just like that. And I'm wondering how much of, so LeBron and Charles say the same thing. Is it just messenger there? Because nobody cared that Barkley said that. Is it simply messenger? I'm wondering how much of this is on him and how much of it's on us.
Well, I remember writing this about Chris Webber once, because Chris Webber's career, I think people would consider to be a failure to some degree, because he should have been the best power forward of all time, and he wasn't. But he still ended up being one of the best 75 players of all time, and he made, I think, $270 million or something in salaries. So by those qualifications, if you're one of the 75 best people ever at what you did, and you made $270 million, how are you a failure? Like, Chris Webber shouldn't feel like a failure. Like, if I told you, hey, LeBatard, your TV show, you're going to do this, it's going to be one of the best 75 TV shows ever that ESPN has ever had, and you're going to make $270 million, but you're never going to win an Emmy, I think you'd take that deal. You're signing up for that one. So, I think sometimes it's unfair, but we judge athletes by whether they reach their potential and whether their team came through in the finals, and that's it. And sometimes I think there's a lot of value to that. Like, I do feel like Karl Malone is somebody that in crunch time, he just froze up. I saw it. I watched it over and over again. Like, you can't tell me it didn't happen. For Dirk to come through like he did in the finals makes me feel differently about him.
That's a funny one, though. That's a funny one, Bill, because if Dirk had that same game, Miami happened to win that same game, that wouldn't have been Dirk coming through in the finals. Dirk was through 5 games himself. In that last game, I think you might have seen an epic choke job.
Yeah, I'm with you.
What you were seeing it anyway, if they had lost that game.
But he was 1 for 12 in the first half, and then he was 7 for 15 in the second half. So he had one bad half. I'm willing to give that to him because.
No, I'm just saying. But if they lose, he got 2 free throws in the game. The 2 free throws he got were both technical fouls. So if they lose the game, I think the conversation becomes what a soft game Dirk played. If he shoots 33% with no free throws, 0 free throws, I think people might have remembered. Yeah, this stuff is fickle. I don't even know how the conversation changes if LeBron James doesn't get called for a bogus charge on Tyson Chandler at the end of Game 5. Like, this stuff is pretty fickle. We'll fool around with your legacy based on some stuff that. Dirk Nowitzki, this was a nice run, and he was great. And he played to his averages. Dwayne Wade played to his averages. LeBron James did not play to his averages. And if he had played to his averages, I think these storylines are vastly different.
A few things didn't go their way, and they were missing that second score. If Boozer had been Boozer, and maybe it's more interesting.
Oh, the team Miami killed was Boston.
At least are you going to admit that role players matter? Just admit that to me. Role Players Matter by Dan LeBatard.
Brian Cardinal was the reason Dallas won.
Brian Cardinal, Jan Manimni. Yeah, Mahimni.
I don't know who that guy was. I'm telling you, role players wouldn't matter if LeBron had just been himself. Did a role player keep LeBron from being himself?
Deshaun Stevenson hitting those big threes. J.J. Barea, last 2 games, it was great.
That was ballsy by Rick Carlisle right there, huh?
My link to the Nesson article about the comparisons between the 2011 Red Sox and the 27 Yankees now doesn't even hold up from a Yankee perspective.
No, I think they're a little late.
Exactly. That guy didn't know how prescient he was.
I don't think Gehrig and Ruth can really compare to Gonzo and Big Papi at this point.
No. I just hope that I can live long enough to see the book that will be written about the rampant steroids that are being used.
Oh, Johnny, no!
The resurgence of Big Papi, known steroid user. Of course, speaking of OJ, he's still out looking for the real supplement, kind of like OJ is looking for the real killer.
Oh, my God.
I mean, come on. At this stage in his career, when he's, first of all, they got him off the scrap heap 10 years ago or whatever it was, and he was, about to go back to the Dominican, and then suddenly he becomes one of the most fearsome hitters in baseball. And then he's ready for the scrap heap again, not getting any younger. There's talk about, do we waive him or, do we bench him? And people are holding up signs about how he needs a hug. And now you can't get the guy out. I mean, it's just unbelievable to me. It's unbelievable.
All right, we should mention that the comments of Jacko did not reflect the comments of the BS Report or ESPN in general. These are your comments as a fan.
Absolutely.
You feel like Mr. Ortiz...
Just rank speculation, obviously, right.
You feel like Mr. Ortiz has maybe achieved statistical success in means beyond his own human.
And of course, I'm
abilities.
saying it, suggesting it tongue in cheek because they have testing in baseball, and I just, as a Yankee fan, I have to hang my hat on some sort of bitterness.
So you can't really compare it to a situation like, say, had Mr. Ortiz gone to South America and had stem cells injected into a damaged part of his body, and then miraculously regained the ability to throw 97 miles an hour.
Well, Bill, see,
we can't compare those two things, right?
Medical science is always advancing, Bill, and amazing things happen with surgeons, and sometimes, like when Louis Pasteur discovered found penicillin, people at the time probably thought it was witchcraft or something illegal or crazy. Similar things happened with Bartolo Colon's doctor, and who am I to suggest that medical science shouldn't advance and move forward in the 21st century?
Sure.
Absolutely.
Really good defense.
Absolutely. Did you get the Peabody tattooed on you?
I did. That's why I was, thank God. It would have been awkward if we didn't win it. But Justified won, and that guy, Tim Oliphant, was kind of walking around after. And he's got that big smile on his face and just seemed like a good guy. And I almost broke my rule of not approaching celebrities just to be like, hey, Tim Oliphant, what's happening?
Yeah.
But handsome guy, Johnny.
Is he really? Really? Yeah.
I doubted myself for about 3 seconds.
If David Kahn had drafted Leonard, everyone would be like, "Oh, what an idiot!" But since it was the Spurs, everyone's like, "Oh, he must be great." Like I think that we do that. Like I do it too. Or like the Spurs do it. We just kind of assume it was great because they've done so many smart things in the past. But
yeah, but at the same time, when the draft was as it was unfolding, it was clear that he was the guy who was falling.
Right.
And when Indiana took him, I thought to myself, that's a nice pick by them. Like that guy's a gamer. Like they have Hansborough, they have Paul George, they have Granger, Collison. Like this is a team now that can go out and compete. And then they traded him for George Hill Tuesday afternoon. I think this is the latest we've ever taped a BS Report. But you know what? You got to accommodate the real WWE champion on the Subway Fresh Take Hotline right now. CM Punk, what's happening?
Nothing. I sorry if I'm keeping you up past your bedtime. I know there's a big time difference here, but I appreciate being on the show.
But it's always been their defense for me that's been a problem, and that O'Brien Franklin signing is key. So
yeah. I like them. I also think their division isn't going to be as good this year as it was last year, so that should help them too.
So, but with this game, it's funny. I think it hasn't been like this for a while. But that Thursday night game, I remember 2 years, maybe 2 out of 3 years, it fell right on the number. Because I think they don't, these games are fixed. Let's be honest, and they don't want anyone to feel bad about losing money on the first game. So,
yep,
how do you not get fired after a while from these?
I don't know.
Should I play it anyway?
Yeah, I guess.
All right, let me see. This is Labor Day. He called me late last night. So
I was drinking.
Yep. Okay, hold on.
Cousin Sal, sports guy calling in. Got a little buzz going off Kahlua and cream, so excuse me if I go off on a tangent. Sitting here enjoying Labor Day. Another day off from work, which is so ironic because I haven't written a column since the season finale of Hogan Knows Best. Don't get me wrong, I got more mailbags than Cliff Clavin at a postal convention, but that's neither here nor there. I called to tell you I'm worried about the safety of my beau, my kindred spirit, my soulmate, the great Josh Freeman. He goes up against the Lions, who have the DEFCON 5 of all pass rushers. Dodikin and Heineken and Barbie and Ken, Dominican Sue, that's his name. He leads the league in OPS, whip, BABIP, FIP, ASPCA, and IHOP, the International House of Pearl Jam. I got a message for you, Donikin. Listen here, Fatso. You keep your hands off my Joshy boy, you hear me? You just have to deal with the wrath of the sports guy. Over and out. Kaiser Sose.
Yeah, the Kahlua is always bad for me. Yeah. Why are people so willing to discount Josh Freeman this year?
A lot of jealous vets on that Colts team that would like to prove that while Manning is out, they could do the job. And it's not Curtis Paint. It's Kerry Collins. I think they have a chance. Dallas Clark hates Peyton Manning. He'll never admit it. Don't even ask him, but it's true. You're going to see.
Listen, there would be no... It's too bad he won a Super Bowl because I would say that this would be the greatest Ewing theory that ever happened. But since they won a Super Bowl, he's ineligible. The Cardinals traded for Kevin Cobb, 5 weeks ago?
They did? That's all it was?
Yeah. The free agency, the whole thing started the beginning of August.
So. Yeah.
Maybe it was 6 weeks ago max.
Mm-hmm.
Comes in, has to learn a whole new system, meets all new coaches. He's got to get timing with Fitzgerald and the other guys. He's all of a sudden the guy. He's moving to a new city. He's got a girlfriend. It's just a lot to suddenly get thrown out there in a game. I don't know. I don't know how people respond to that.
Well, Kevin Cobb's girlfriend can't be. I mean, this is not a Kardashian we're talking about.
Stop chest bumping the people in your house.
Let me ask you, the 9/11 factor, and does that factor into the line at all? I mean, this overwhelming emotion, is it good or bad for the Jets?
I didn't think of that.
Because I think the Jets are better than my team. I hate to say it. I think we'll win 9 games, but this is not one of them.
I don't know if...
I mean, you know how it is when they retire numbers or something. There's that big halftime ceremony. It seems to work against the team rather than...
Yeah, it seems to work against the home team. Give me one reason not to tease the Patriots with any other game on the slate this week.
I can't.
Okay.
I can't. Yeah, you're going to have to give me 3 weeks to come up with one.
I came up with one.
Yeah.
Brandon Marshall changed his medication. He feels better mentally. I read an article
about
that this weekend. Yeah, it's true. He was diagnosed with a borderline personality disorder, and he's on better meds. He's on better meds now, and he feels better.
Oh, all right. Well, can he run the ball? Can he play quarterback?
He can't play quarterback, unfortunately. He can't and doesn't run the ball. But they do think he's going to get along a lot better with Chad Henne this year. I did read this article this weekend. Yeah,
so that's a stay away then.
Yeah, he's. I actually am now nervous. I think I need to go to church or something because this could be a huge jinx. Talking about how wonderful he is and everything, this is not good. Slips on a mound in Anaheim tonight or something and rips his ACL. I'm going to blame myself. I need to go light a candle.
I think he could go on like this forever.
Nice try.
No, I'm dead serious. Dead serious. I just think this guy. What is he? He's 41 years old.
I think he's 42 now, but yeah, he's
42?
Yeah.
November 29th, 1969. God, he's younger than I am. That makes me want to kill myself.
You look younger, though. He's got the receding hairline.
Thanks, Johnny.
Yeah.
Appreciate that. Let's end on that note. Thank you, Johnny. I don't agree with
Vegas doesn't like Tampa. What they only had their over-under 7.5, 8, right?
I don't agree with that.
Yeah. Well, you don't agree. You also left me a message.
Uh-oh.
I don't know when you left. I think you left this message tomorrow. I think if that's at all possible. But
did?
You're worried about Josh Freeman. Let me just play it. I don't like to play these, but I like to get your permission ahead of time. Let me just play this one. Hold on.
Cousin Sal, sports guy here. Just finished a case of hard lemonade. Watching my DVD collection of greatest icing calls in the history of the Boston Bruins. It's the coup de grace of all icing DVDs. Now I'm alone with my thoughts and concerned that after a tough loss this week, my boyfriend and lifeline, Josh Freeman and his Buccaneers, travel all the way down south to play the Minnesota Vikings. A scary bunch, those Vikings. Guys are out to kill. Big, fat, intense Scandinavian men covered in beards and bubonic plague, running around credit card commercials yelling, "What's in your wallet?" Well, let me tell you, if you Vikings even think of laying a shield on my Joshy-Washy twinkle toes, I want you to remember one thing. As the great Pearl Jam once said, Daddy didn't give attention to the fact that Mommy didn't care. King Jeremy the Wicked ruled his world. Jeremy spoke in class today. Jeremy spoke in class today. Jeremy spoken. Doggone it, I can't sing. Sports guy over and out. Con.
I left that tomorrow?
That's weird. You left it tomorrow.
Wow.
Yeah, you're going to get this. I said Houston 1.5.
Yeah.
So, you got it.
Fair enough. All right.
Killing me. Philly at Atlanta, Sunday night.
Michael Vick's return.
This is Michael Vick's return. I read somewhere that the family of the dog victims are going to be at midfield for the coin toss. So,
is that true?
Yeah, like the dog, like the mother dog and the father dog.
Oh, Jesus, you wrote me in on that. I can't believe you. Mayweather seemed genuinely upset and he might spit in his face or something.
Yeah, I'm surprised. I mean, that guy, and it still could happen. He's going to jail for a while once this money stuff. I mean, if you watch that 24/7, he is so despicable. This is how he tries to show that he's a nice guy. He has the troops on Skype at 2:30 in the morning from his mansion. And then one of the troops makes a mistake of saying, hey, we're out here fighting for our country, and I'd like to know, what's your inspiration for the fight, for fighting, for the fight game? And he holds up probably about $50,000 in cash and shows the guys on Skype. These poor bastards. He's like, here it is right here. Here's my inspiration. And then proceeds to take his laptop all around his mansion and show him his cars and everything, and the connection keeps kicking out, and he's getting mad. And I'm like, yeah, these guys are dropping the connection on you. They don't want anything to do with this nonsense. Hey, you were very excited about Josh Freeman last night. You called me during the Emmys, which is weird. I was like, oh wow, I went the whole night without getting a call, and then let me hear. I'll play it for you.
All right.
Cousin Sal, sports guy here, all alone. Dipping an oven crisp chicken Subway sub into a pitcher of apricot brandy, watching the Emmys. And they just gave a trophy to another obese woman. Looks like she could play nose tackle for the Kansas City Chiefs. Anyway, I'm just telling you right now, if after today's performance, my buttercup twinkle toes honey knees Josh Freeman doesn't win an Emmy for leading man in a dramatic sports event, I'm going to personally write an angry letter to the president of Hollywood. And I'll do it too. I mean, what else does this guy need to do? He brought the Bucks back from a 17-point deficit, 22 completions, 243 yards, 1 touchdown, and 1 loyal and devoted stalker. I mean, boyfriend. That's me, the sports guy. I like to call Josh Freeman Goose, because whenever I watch him on TV, he gives me goose pimples all over my arms and some bizarre areas in my genitalia. And as the great Boston-born and bred band New Kids on the Block always said, everybody's always talking about who's on top. Don't cross our path, because you're going to get stomped. We ain't going to give anybody any slack. And if you try to keep us down, we're going to come right back. We're hanging tough. All right, I'll stop now. Sports guy and Joshua Cakes, together forever. Over and out. Mailbag.
I don't know how I made that call from the airplane, because I'm positive I was in the air last night.
Really?
Maybe I made it from that airplane phone. I got tired or something.
That is bizarre. You probably went in the cockpit and said, I need to get this done.
That might have been what happened.
Wow.
All right, who do we have left?
That's only because I was a big Temple Pilots fan.
Yeah, Kyle Weiland. Kyle Weiland. I tweeted the other day. I tweeted Andrew Marchand instead of Brad Marchand, and people are like, "You're a fake Bruins fan," all that stuff. Like, I mess up names all the time. I called my son Ben Rufus 4 days ago. Like, you're not dealing with somebody who's operating at full IQ capacity anymore.
Can the South possibly get the second wild card?
Yeah, if the Jets go in the tank. Why not?
One of the AFC East teams will get a wild card, I think. And then,
well, I don't know if that's a guarantee, though. Why is that a guarantee?
I'm talking about the Bills. I don't know.
Nah, the Bills are going to end up at 7-9 or 8-8. Sorry, Joe Meade, but I have
them sitting at 9-7 right now.
Yeah, it'll be in that 7-9, 8-8, 9-7 range. But
why don't we compromise and say 9-8 so we can move on?
Instead, after make the interception ruin a great evening I had planned. Josh and I were going to watch Louis C.K., eat some Subway chicken bacon ranch melt, listen to acoustic Pearl Jam bootleg concert from Leavenworth State Prison.
Love
now
that.
The evening's ruined. Poor Joshy boy, Tootsie Wootsy, Pudding Pop, Twinkle Toes, Jolly Rancher, bit of Honey Hub Bubba's in the bathroom, pissing waterfalls from his beautiful eyes. I know what I'll do. When he comes out, I'll sing him our favorite song, the theme from Joni Loves Chachi. That'll cheer him up. Oh, look at that. Here he comes now. Hey, Joshy boy, I got something to say to you. Here it comes. Something magic in the way you hold me in your eyes.
Yeah.
No one ever warned me love just takes me by surprise.
Can't hit those notes.
I don't know what's come over me. You got me hypnotized. What? Joshy! He just shot himself repeatedly in the spleen with a machine gun. Must have been my singing. He's day to day. Gotta make a tourniquet. Sports guy over and out.
Well, it's the Michael Jackson corollary of when somebody dies, you throw out the last however many years where, it was a little shaky. And you just concentrate on the good stuff, which I think is what you should do when people die.
Well, that's fine, but then we should have 2 obituaries for him. We should acknowledge when that point comes and say, and really just literally come out and have an obituary and say, this is a great guy. I don't care what happens the rest of the way. We're going to have it like this. But, I mean, honestly, guys, we set a record for hearing Say What You Will about Al Davis to start a sentence today or this week.
Yeah. There was a lot of that and a lot of, Al Davis was Al Davis.
Yeah, right.
A lot of that. Almost like when we talk about Corolla. Hey, Corolla's Corolla.
Yeah.
He's gonna say some stuff. But
But 3 months ago, they're saying he's stubborn, pig-headed, micromanaging, taskmaster, thinks he's bigger than the game. And now the same people saying, you got to hand it to him. He stuck to his convictions, believed in what he believed in, and made football what it is today. Like, what?
That's just a death thing. But I do think the one thing I didn't totally understand was how the Raiders winning in Al's memory and all that, because there didn't seem to be a lot of evidence that he was that tight with like the players the last 10 years. It almost seemed like I'd certainly never read anything that suggested he was, in the locker room and on the field all the time. Like, I can't imagine that he had that much of an impact on these guys that these guys were like, we got to win this for Al. I think they just wanted to win because they had lost the week before and they needed the game. But, whatever. It's a narrative.
Here's my breakdown of the 3 Washington guys. I think Hightower's basically runs with his eyes closed. So if it's there, he runs hard and he runs for yards. And then I think the other guy, Halu, I believe his name is, I think he gets exactly what's blocked and maybe a yard short. So if the play's blocked for 7, he'll get 6.5.
They trade Reggie Wayne to the Rams last week instead of Rams picking up Lloyd.
That's a good point.
That would be a new height of tanking, and I'm ready to see it right now because it's obvious what some of these teams are doing.
Well, I don't know if you've noticed, but maybe just by keeping Jim Caldwell, that's your form of tanking.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
Because the Colts players called him out. Jeff Saturday said after the game, like, we were just outcoached. Like, when you have a player say that, it's time to go.
Cousin Sal, drunk Bill Simmons leaving your voicemail. Except this time I'm not drunk. I accidentally mixed a gram of peyote with a handful of silly putty. Now, I'll do anything to take my mind off that dreadful stink job of performance by my boyfriend, life partner, Joshy Boy, Twinkle Toes, Bread Pudding, Garanimals Freeman. I'm disgusted. He stunk up this whole city of England. And London hasn't seen a jerk job like that since George Michael got caught in the men's room.
You dressed up as an eagle on Saturday night. I thought that was a bad omen for your team. Do you have any regrets?
Yeah, well, we had a Halloween party, and it was a criminal theme, and I did sort of a hybrid costume, George Michael Vick. And I had a Michael Vick jersey and the pants and the cleats, and then I had a George Michael crazy 80s wig and the crucifix earring and the aviators, and yes, absolutely, I think it jinxed me.
That Pats game could be for the AFC East, and for me and Cousin Sal's bet where we did the Pats, the Chargers, and Cam Newton.
Cam Newton may not even be Rookie of the Year. We could lose that. This redheaded freak is a dynamo in Cincinnati.
I didn't even think of that. Andy Dalton can't win that, can he? Oh, my God.
I don't know.
We got to stop gambling. We got to stop. We just have to stop it. All right, let's keep going.
All right, Cleveland at Houston.
Cleveland at Houston.
Got to stop gambling. Keep going with the lines.
Man, I have 13 for this, and I almost feel like that's too low.
No, you should feel like it's a little high. Well, Vegas says 10.5. I said 10.
Really? Can I just say that Dallas Washington isn't good? I think it's good
you're
because
right.
you root for the Cowboys, but that's a terrible game for the rest
You
of
watch.
America.
It's going to be good.
Yeah, I don't think so.
It's going to be better than any of us want it to be.
Those are bad early games. I might have to spend time with my kids.
Yeah,
that's screw that.
But let me ask you, from someone who's not a fan of the team, is Rob Ryan getting harder and harder to look at? I feel like we have Captain Lou Albano running our defense. I'm really waiting for him to put the rubber bands to his chin and sub in the Wild Samoans in our nickel package. I can't take it anymore.
The rubber bands would be great. He should just do that 1 week. I love that idea.
It is rough. It is rough.
Here's the real problem. And Miami is still 2-1 to win the title. The way this system shook out, it's almost impossible for them not to win this title. They can. I mean, I'm not even saying it as a reverse jinx. It's like they get to add.
You are, but
no,
I love it.
No, I'm not. No, I'm not. I'm saying
I don't care. You can practice on me and save it for LeBatard.
Last year, it was defensible that they didn't win the title because they really couldn't put together an 8-man nucleus. And we knew, like, if this team loses, it's going to be because LeBron and Wade played too many minutes, because LeBron shrinks from the pressure, and because they weren't deep enough. And all that stuff was borne out. We knew it was a possibility. This year, because of that rule that if you were not a tax team, you get to use your full mid-level exception. They can go out and basically get Shane Battier or David West or Jason Richardson.
Wait, they can get who? Not David West.
David West, the guy in the Hornets.
Yeah, well, he was looking at a near max deal, and I know he hurt his knee, but he's still going to get.
He really hurt his knee.
Oh, is he still not back?
He's on his way rehabbing back. Oh. I'm throwing out names.
Okay. Anyway,
you know, it could be Tayshaun Prince. Like, excuse me. I don't know. They're going to get a real guy with that slot, and then they're also probably going to get one or two of the veteran guys, whether it's Grant Hill, like those type of guys. They're going to have an
I don't think they're in any better shape. They have the same nucleus problem as last year, and the minutes problem isn't going to be solved by the highly compressed schedule that they're going to knock out this year in the sprint to June. Well, they look like the same kind of issues to me.
Yeah, but not if they improve like the guys, the 5, 6, 7, 8 guys. They're going to be a totally different team. That's why they lost the finals.
Though.
Why?
It's just replacing. I don't know about improving.
Let's say they get...
Because Haslam and Mike Miller were sort of credible pieces when you looked at it before the season started last year.
I'm not sold on Mike Miller ever.
Yeah, he could be cooked, but all I'm saying is you're going to swap in guys like maybe Tayshaun, maybe Shane Battier, guys of that ilk for guys like Haslam or Miller. Is that really going to make that big a difference?
Battier is your fifth guy in the court in crunch time. Are you a better team?
Absolutely, yes. Unequivocally. Battier is.
So then how does that not make a difference?
I mean, that he's a little bit of a different case. I just mean going back to... What do you mean
it's a different case? He's a free agent.
Huh?
He's a free agent. They could sign him. He could fit in that mid-level exception. I mean, that they could get somebody with that exception that could be in crunch time for them. One of their 5 guys who was better than last year's 4 and 5 guys is my point. I think that will make them better.
Just to demonstrate how much I turned off my basketball brain, I can't even repeat to you who their crunch time 4 and 5 guys were.
Well,
was it Mario Chalmers? It
was a little Mario Chalmers. It was a little Mike Miller. It was,
was
sometimes
Mike Bibby
they
on
played.
The floor?
Sometimes they. I mean, it kind of vacillated.
I can't even remember who was on that team anymore.
Battier is really interesting though. Well, if they had Battier, assuming he's got enough left in the tank, but even if for 25 minutes he can come in and lock somebody down, because that was another issue with that team last year, is LeBron was their best perimeter defender, and they didn't really have that.
He's still going to be their best perimeter defender.
Well, but I mean, they didn't have that second guy that'd be like let's give LeBron a break here and throw this guy out on whoever.
I don't know. I think the whole thing is a fantastic another run at a reverse jinx. I fully support it.
How dare you? How dare you? I think it's their title to lose. I do. I think those 2-1 odds are crazy. Those odds will be even odds by January 15th.
Well, I'm not touching any of that.
Go through all the teams. Name me a team that you feel good about. You think Dallas?
No, I don't think Dallas.
Year after Dallas, old
you know who
last
I think?
year?
The Los Angeles Lakers. That's who I think.
I see. I would pick them to be a bust more than a contender.
You're allowed to. I think you could argue both sides of it. They've had an extended rest, a team of old guys.
Well, now they're going to be
that has an established nucleus, established role players.
Good luck getting a 66-game season where you're playing back-to-back-to-backs with guys like Kobe and Bynum.
All
That's
they
not
need
going
to
to go
do
well.
is get to the playoffs. Those guys can take nights off. All they got to do is get to the playoffs.
I'm going to be coming out of my LA Live office across the street from Staples for a Starbucks at like 2 in the afternoon one day, and they're just going to be wheeling Bynum out on a gurney. There's no way his knees hold up. They have to play 66 games in 120 days.
I don't know.
No.
It's going to be glorious. I honestly think, and this is what part of the study I'm going to have to do. You know how hard it's going to be to do over-unders this year, by the way?
Oh, well, we have our big – we might fly you out to L.A. for that one, by the way.
Yeah, I'm coming. We need to do that in person, I think. But it's going to be a real frantic scramble because we won't know who's on what teams until free agency is over. And when's that going to be? Almost right up to Christmas, right?
We have Barnwell in Vegas, and he's going to follow how these futures go up and down. I still think the Miami 2-1 to win the title is a great bet. I'm saying that as a Celtics fan because they're going to get they're going to add 3 guys to last year's team, and people are going to go, "Oh God." That's how this is going to play out. Don't forget, Riley's probably been working these guys since July 1st, even though nobody's supposed to talk to anybody. We all know that he cheats the system. Your Wizards, though.
Huh?
Your Wizards. If
my Washington professional basketball team, yeah.
Well, they're going to amnesty Rashard Lewis, and if you wipe him off your cap, it's like you have $25 million in payroll now.
Yeah, so they'll do that next year. I think they'll just go ahead and it's kind of a perfect year for them to be bad. You could be as terrible as you want. It's a shortened season. Folks are going to be excited to come see. It's a much more limited, the schedule with playing all the conference games means that I think we're going to get to see fewer of the West Coast teams. So I think there'll be heightened interest in the West Coast teams that come through here.
Well, wait a second, though. Let's talk about this. You're committed right now to $44.7 million. That includes Rashard Lewis's $21.1 million. So you'd be at $26 million if you amnestied him. Why wouldn't the Wizards go after Nene or Marc Gasol?
I think. I mean, it's a reasonable question. I think, to me, it makes more sense for them to sit back and have the optionality of deploying those dollars on a super-duper star. Neither one of those 2 names you just said are super-duper stars.
Yeah, but what super-duper star is signing with Washington ever?
You have to come up with a good angle.
Dwight Howard?
Washington is an attractive place. I would put it up. It's not quite Miami or L.A. or New York, but it's right there in the kind of second tier. It's certainly no worse than Dallas.
Name me 3 marquee free agents they've ever signed in your history as a Bullets Wizards fan.
Marquee free agents.
Yeah. I think you're in denial.
I can't name one.
Yeah. People don't go to Washington.
That's a legacy thing, though. We have a new owner. There's a buzz here. There's an excitement. John Wall's here. Who doesn't want to play with John Wall?
If I'm running the Wizards,
somebody wants to come catch John Wall alley-oops.
If I'm running the Wizards, I amnesty Rashard. I go full force after Nene, and then I try to trade Andre Blatch and whatever else it takes for Jeff Green. And all of a sudden now I have a real basketball team.
I'm worried about. I don't feel like it's a good match for Nene, and I'm worried about his health. I would worry about his him being committed to this.
Well, he had the knee surgery a couple years ago. I still think, how many good centers are there now? 5?
Yeah, well, so go ahead, finish the point, and then I'm going to offer you my point of view on that.
You have 2 centers right now who are 2 of the best 5 centers in the league, and both of them are available. And all you have to do is amnesty Rashard Lewis and then go after one of them, and now you have a starting center that you can either keep or trade in a deal a year from now.
So I would say that we're in an era with this league and the way the rules have kind of evolved. That having a good center, it's a help, but it's not critical to success. I think the Bulls are a legit contender, especially in this shortened season. Who would you say is like, I know who their center is, but he's not a traditional kind of center player.
Right, but Memphis, with the Zebo and Gasol combo, really almost made the finals. Oklahoma City went, the Perkins and Ibaka and Collison, that certainly helped them. Dallas, Chandler was the key piece for them.
None of those guys are good, though. Ibaka is the best player out of that group you mentioned for Oklahoma City. He's not a center.
I know, but I'm saying
he would be great in Washington, by the way.
You need big bodies. You need at least one competent big body to seriously think about winning the title. And
I agree with that.
I don't know if Andre might need a change of scenery. Or it might just need a change of leagues. You know what? I might put down I'm going to put down $5,000. What do you think of that? I'm going to put down $5,000 on that. Well, when else do you get
posted on Grantland?
When else do you have a chance to get free money, basically? Vegas is saying, here's some free money. We have free money for you. We have the Miami Heat to win the title.
LeBatard's going to be so mad at you.
Why do you keep saying this reverse jinx? They should have won the title last year. They choked in the finals. They were right there. They had a 10-point lead in the deciding game that would have basically been impossible for them to lose the title if they won that game. Game 4. And they fell apart for whatever reason. Well, maybe part of that, for whatever reason, is they only had 4 good players and not 8.
We'll see.
Listen, I'm not saying we should start engraving the title yet with all their names on it, but 2-1 is free money. They should be even odds to win the title. Here's how much thought I put into it. You have to declare anything over $10,000 that you win in Vegas, otherwise you don't. I'm going to bet $4,999 in Miami 2-1.
So you're going to cheat the IRS out of your gambling winnings on top of it?
Well, it's
not
free
only
money.
It's going to be really free money.
It's free money. It's Occupy free money. That's what I'm declaring.
There will be many major trades.
Feels like there's something there with that Monte Ellis, Rudy Gay. Like something with those 2 guys that could make sense. Yeah. Something that could make sense. Because you think about how Memphis didn't really have that perimeter go-to guy in the playoffs.
It's supposed to be J.J. Mayo.
You just call him J.J. Mayo? We got to end the podcast. J.J. Mayo. Hey, when do you play them again?
Second to last week of the season? No, we're done with them. We're done with them. We've split.
Oh, there you go.
They beat us in week 1, and then we won.
Well, they can watch you in the playoffs as America's rooting for Tim Tebow. Sal, what's the next one?
Gus, I'm not saying that Tebow's passes are ugly, but...
Anyway, my intoxicated state, I was able to put together a little Christmas story for you to listen to. It goes like this.
Oh, God.
'Twas the night before Christmas in Old Buffalo. 2 quarterbacks squared off, and neither of them could throw. There was one from Harvard who robbed the Bills blind, and the other from heaven who pulls winds from his behind. I was listening to... Wait a minute. What is this? What? There's a fat man coming straight for me with a herd of mooses. Is that Tony Saragusa? Chaz Bono? Jessica Simpson? No, it's Santa and his reindeer. What? He's going to run me over. I'm not ready to die yet. I'm only up to day 37 of 12 days NBA Christmas block. Help! Bismarck Biombo! Help!
And that's it. Wow, there was supposed to be sound effects. This laptop.
I don't know what happened there. I know that
Bismack Biombo did it.
Every time. Oh, boy.
All right.
Some call.
That was a good one.
Like Christmas miracle.
Boy, when Jimmy Kimmel Live's on break, those phone calls get a lot more complex.
Jessica Simpson, no!
It's a little too late.
If New York's up 3-2 and Game 6 is in MSG, does LeBron have any chance of playing well in that game? Does he have any chance?
Of course he has a chance.
No, I think
that's the beautiful thing about
the
basketball.
The crowd rips his heart out.
That's based on last year. This
and
is
the year before.
It's the new year.
How about 2 years of that?
He went to the finals 4 years ago. All
right.
Carried a very poor Cleveland team all the way to the NBA Finals.
My number one non-Celtics wish is for the Clippers to be a good playoff team so I can go to the games.
That's a fair wish.
My number two non-Celtics playoff wish is for Miami, New York round 2, and for New York to have a 3-2 lead going into Game 6. And I will.
You don't ask for much.
I will walk to that game. I will be in the building for that game.
Okay.
If they have a 3-2 lead in Game 6, I will be in the building.
Yes.